All right, so we're going to talk about order of operations again, just to go into more details because you've learned a lot more since then. So with order operations, it is P stands for parentheses, right? They are bound by those, which are parentheses. So the thing that you got to be concerned about with parentheses is so if I had a negative in front of the parentheses, question is what happens? So let's say, for example, if you have negative of -3, well, that means to negate that -3, so now it becomes a +3, okay? That's one. Now, what if we had that negative in front of parentheses that was, I don't know, x minus 5? Right? So I can't do things inside the parentheses. So what does that negative do to that parentheses? So what will happen is that you can think of it as two ways. One is the negative in front just says, hey, negate everything or flip the signs of every single one that's inside the parentheses. Or think of it as a -1 in front and you're distributing the -1 through. So what you will actually have is a -1x and then it's +5 because -1 times -5 spawn same sign positive. 1 times 5 is 5. So that would be your answer there. So that is the main thing that you have to be careful with that. Okay? So let's talk about exponents. E stands for exponents. Okay? And the other name I gave it was powers, right? So the power. So you might get like, it might tell you to take a times a and write it in exponential notation. So I would say write in exponential notation. That means write it with a exponent, right? With a power. So this would be a to the third because it's a times a times a. Okay. So it might even tell you to do the same thing with whether we had 17 times 17 times 17. Well, exponential function, notation, exponential notation would be 17 to the third power. But if I ask you to simplify, or evaluate, then you're going to have to do the 17 times 17 times 17, which gives you a very big number, 4,913. Okay, so depending on what the direction is asking for is what you would put down. Okay, so that's one thing. Now it could go the opposite way. It might tell you, it might just tell you to do, let's say, 5 to the third. All right. It might ask you what that means. Well, that means 5 times 5 times 5. I write the base 3 times and multiply them. Or it can tell me to, again, simplify or evaluate. So then I would do 5 times 5 times 5, which would be 125. Okay? So it all depends on what they're asking you for. So this is, again, simplify or evaluate. And this over here would be to either expand or just ask you what does 5 cubed mean, okay? So that is very important. Now, there is one more thing that I want to talk about with exponents. And the other thing I should do is indent this. There we go. And then the other thing I want to talk about was what if there was a negative in front? So if I had a -3 squared versus a -3 squared, okay, these two are actually very different, okay? So the question I'm going to ask is, what is the power attached to? Okay, what is the power attached to? Okay, that is the question. So if you look at it over on the on this right here, the power is attached to the 3. Where here, the power is attached to the parentheses. Okay, see the difference there? So on the first one, come on. On the first one, let me even do it this way. The power is attached to the 3, where this one over here, let's see if I can do this. On the left, the power is attached to the parentheses. So the one on the left says negate 3 times 3, because 3 squared will be 3 times 3, where the one on the right, dang it, okay, and the one on the right says write the parentheses out twice. Okay, it just happens to be -3. Okay, so the one on the left is going to become a -9, where the one on the right is actually going to be a +9. Okay, so understand the difference there, and the main reason is, what is the power attached to? Okay, again, the one on the left attached to the 3. There's no parentheses. One on the right is attached to the parentheses. Okay, so know the difference there. All right, so next thing was M and D, right? M stands for multiply. Actually, yeah, multiply and divide from left to right. Okay, so that's what that stands for. All right, in fact, I'm going to do it this way. There we go. So what do I want to talk about in this case? So in this case, we talked about spawn, right? Same positive, opposite, negative. With multiplying, especially with multiplying, we talked about, especially with fractions, is top times top, bottom times bottom. Okay? So that's the main part we talked about. Now, with dividing, we talked a lot more. Dividing, we talked about, especially with fractions, was the copy, change, flip. Oh. Okay. And then we also talked about that if we have something on the top, like that we got to pretend is parentheses, we got to make it as one whole thing divided by another whole thing as a single entity, right? So we got that. And then the last but not least, the A and the S, which that tells me to add and subtract from, wow, that's nice, huh? Left to right, okay? And the only thing that I want to bring out there is that if I had like A minus B, right? And with the add the inverse or add the opposite, you'll have A plus a negative B, okay? So this, let me even do it this way. Oops. Okay, so the plus the negative is the same. So the plus negative is the same as subtraction. Okay. All right. And then we also talked about here like terms. And we said those had to be same base and same power, right? So let's look at this as a whole. So PEMDAS, P-E-M-D-A-S, right? So there's really 4 steps: parentheses, exponents, multiplication, division, addition, subtraction, okay? So those are our 4 steps that we need. So let's do some examples here. So some of the, let's start with this one right here. Example. So this says 56 divided by -7. Now you're probably asking, what's the difference between those 2 brackets, right? Because this bracket here is a square bracket, while around the -7 is just a parentheses. So all they're trying to do is to let you know that this bracket and this bracket are associated with each other. So that's an outer bracket. So that you do not get confused with thinking that this is associated with this and that this is associated with this, which doesn't make sense anyways in the math world, but you could confuse it. I understand that. So that's what those brackets are. It's all still parentheses. It's just trying to differentiate what's what. And then this is divided by a -1/6. So let me do this really quick here. There we go. So it looks, so, all right. So what do I have to do? I have to do this first because there's parentheses there. So I'm going to go into that parentheses and I got work to do. Again, it's 56 divided by -7. So 56 divided by -7. So again, spawn, opposite signs. That means it is negative. So this is going to be a -8 divided by -1/6. Okay, all right. So now remember what I said before. I can write any number as a fraction. Okay, this is where copy, change, flip comes into play. So I'm copying this, changing division to multiplication, and flipping this one. Okay, so there we go. So that means my result will be again, spawn, both the same sign, both negative. So therefore, I'm going to get a positive 48. All right. And there we go. All right. So let's do another problem. Another example is this. All right, so we got 10 minus 5 squared over 2 squared plus 4 squared. Okay, so in terms of order operations, there's no parentheses. Really, there's this one here and this one here because I gotta make the top as one thing and the bottom as one number, right? So top is one number, bottom is one number before I can divide them. So therefore, I'm going to deal with just the top and just the bottom. So in both the top and bottom, inside the parentheses, it's going to be the exponent I got to deal with. So I have a 10 minus 5 squared. 5 squared means 5 times 5, which is 25. Oops. It's going to be 25 over 2 squared is 2 times 2, plus 4 squared is 4 times 4. Okay, so the top I'm going to get a negative 15. Bottom I'm going to get a 20. Okay, so the question is, number one, spawn. Spawn tells me that this is going to be negative. All right, so the next question is, does anything go into 15 and 20? And the answer to that is, my first thought is 5. So 5 goes into 15 how many times? 3 times. 5 goes into 20 how many times? 4 times. So this is going to be a negative 3 over 4. And that will be my answer there. There we go. There we go. All right. Okay, so there's another example. All right, so let's do another one here. Example. So I got 7 times 16 plus, those are what we call squiggly bracket, but still think of it as kind of a parentheses here, divided by square bracket, 16 minus parentheses 7 plus 5. There we go. All right, so again, so the 7 plus 5 is in the inner parentheses, and then the 16 minus that small parentheses is still the inner, and then the largest and outside parentheses is those squiggly brackets, as I would call them. Okay, so order operation says I have to deal with this whole thing first because that's the parentheses. However, inside this parentheses, I go through the order operation again, so I have to deal with that parentheses. Inside that parentheses, I got to go through the whole order operations again, which tells me I actually have to deal with that first. Okay, so that's going to give me 7 times 16 plus 148 divided by, oops, bad divide, divided by 16 minus 12. All right. Now, again, same thing, outer parentheses. Inside that, I'm going to have to go through the order operations again. So that's the parentheses I got to deal with. So therefore, I have a 7 times 16 plus 148 divided by 4. Okay. Let's do a better division sign here. There we go. All right. So, again, I still got to deal with this parentheses here. Awesome. So, I need to do 148 divided by 4. Awesome. So now I have a 7 times 16 plus 37. Okay. So far, so good. All right. Now, when I look at the order operations, I have to do multiplication, division first before I do addition and subtraction. So this is going to give me 7 times 16 plus 37 1 149 would be my answer. Okay, there we go. All right, so again, when I go into this whole parentheses here, I have to go through the order operations again, which tells me, that this needs to get done. Well, within that parenthesis, I gotta go into order operations again, so which tells me that has to be done. Okay, so once that parenthesis goes away, now I can do the next parentheses. After that parenthesis goes away, now that I can do the whole thing. Okay, so therefore I get the 149. Right? So that is my third example, and my fourth example deals with absolute value. So let's talk about that. So next example is 11 minus the absolute value of 7 minus 4 squared. So I want you to think of absolute values as like parentheses as well, okay? So essentially you have to deal with this absolute value, essentially getting rid of it, kind of like me getting rid of this parentheses, right? This parentheses, and then I got rid of these parentheses. So in this line here, you don't see any parentheses or square brackets, you just see those squiggly lines, okay? So same idea there as I would do here. So I want to deal with that particular part itself first. So it's going to be 11 minus the absolute value of, so when we go inside the parentheses, we got to start the whole order operations all over again. So inside the absolute value sign, is there another parentheses? No. Is there an exponent? Yes. So I have to deal with this first. Okay. So it's 7. So some of you guys are going to say minus 16. Some of you are going to say plus 16. Question is, which one is the right answer? Okay. So if we go back to the exponents, we said, what is the power attached to? Okay, so if you look here, what is the power attached to? Is it attached to a parentheses? No. Is it attached to the 4? Yes. Yes, it is. So that means the negative is still there, so it's just the 4 being squared, which is 16. So there's that part. So now I have to do this whole inside. So therefore I got 11 minus the absolute value of negative 9. Right? Now I take the absolute value of it. So it will be 11 minus a positive 9. So therefore that's equal to 2. So there's my answer there. Okay, so there's some exponents in there. We got to be careful. What is it attached to? All right. And I think I have a fifth one. Yeah, let's do the fifth one. So the fifth one is going to show you an example where now we have variables in there too, which is going to throw us off. Well, let's see what I have here. We have 9, squiggly bracket, 5 times a minus 5 plus 18. Ooh, I forgot the square bracket. And then it says minus square bracket 2 times 4a minus 3 plus 2 square bracket, squiggly bracket. Okay, so if you notice, this square bracket and this square bracket are attached to each other. This square bracket and this square bracket is attached to each other. And then we have the parentheses, the squiggly brackets on the very, very outside of things. All right, so, all right, there we go. All right, so question is, what do we do first? I know it seems so long, okay? So this is what I'm gonna tell you. So again, I have parentheses, but the problem is that when we go inside these squiggly brackets, we gotta start the order operation all over again. So within it, do I have it? Yes, I have one here and one here. And within that, we have one here and one here. And then when you go and evaluate that, you go, wait a minute, we have a problem. because the one on the left says a minus 5. We can't subtract those two. On the right side, it says 4a minus 3. Same thing. Can't combine those two because they're not like terms, okay? So therefore, I have to move on. So what can I do? So in here, since I can't do that parentheses, is there an exponent? No, okay? So no exponent. Next thing would be multiplying or dividing from left to right, which is those two right there. That's a multiplication, so that's what I'm going to do first, okay? So 9, squiggly bracket, square bracket. What do I do here? Oh, this is distributing. So I have 5a minus 25 plus 18 minus, what do I do here? I do the same thing, distribute. So I get 8a minus 6 plus 2. Okay, so my multiplication is done. Now, if I look in here, I can add or subtract from left to right. And when I add or subtract, since the 5a is in there and the 8a in there, that means I need like terms in order for them to add together. So for me, I can see that these two are like terms and these two are like terms, but not together. So let me do it this way. Let me change a different color here, like a blue. Nah, where did blue? So let's do green. So this and this are like terms, okay? But they're in different parentheses, so I can't just cross add them per se. So I got 9, squiggly bracket. This is going to turn out to be a 5a minus 7 minus an 8a minus 4. Okay, so there we go. So far, so good. Not done yet. What we could do here is to now add these together, but there are two sets of square brackets that are in the way. So remember what I said about this subtraction sign, right? We should think of it as a -1 in front, and we're going to distribute a -1 through, or just flip all the signs. Now, why don't we do it on the first one? Well, the first one doesn't have a negative in front, so essentially it'd be just a +1 in front. And if I put that through, then actually, let me do it this way. On this one, there is a 1, but is it going to be a +1? So I'll be distributing that in, which is fine. So what I have is 9, squiggly bracket. We're looking squiggly bracket. All right. And when I distribute that 1, it's just going to be itself. However, when the -1 gets distributed through, it flips the sign. So the 8a becomes a -8a, and a -4 or -4 will become a +4. That is the best squiggly ever. There we go. All right, so now those two square brackets are gone. So now everything is in one parentheses. So now again, I have like terms, right? I got those two, and I have these two. So that means I got 9. This is going to be a -3a minus 3. Okay, so with that being said, now I gotta finish by distributing this 9. Let's pick a different color here. Let's do orange, why not? Okay, so this has to be distributed through. So what I'm gonna get here is a -27a minus a 27. So there goes my answer, okay? So notice how I really just kind of broke into pieces. You're welcome to just deal with just this piece here for now, right? Get that done. And then deal with just that piece and get that done. Then you would get to here, right? And then you would distribute that negative through, and then you'll get this, which is fine as well. No big deal, all right? And then you'll see that you can combine like terms, and then you'll have to distribute that 9, okay? So that is giving me a different color scheme, all right? So these are the examples that I wanted to give you to have you try it out. If you have any questions, let me